Lesson 3.2, what we're going to be working on today is we are going to be solving equations again. Yesterday we solved equations and we used inverse operation that was addition and subtraction. Okay, so if you remember, inverse to addition was what? Subtraction. Inverse to subtraction was addition. Okay, so we knew if we found something like x plus 2 equals 3, I would say, okay, I do the inverse, so I subtract 2 on both sides and I get x is equal to 1. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working with multiplication and division. So let's think about it. What's the inverse to multiplication? Division. What's the inverse to division? Multiplication, okay? Now, I want you to go ahead and write down these problems. We're going to do them together. So in the first problem here, there's a major common error that people make that I want to talk about before we even learn how to do this, okay? We know that the inverse to multiplication is division. And a lot of times people see this problem and they say, oh, negative 4x, so I need to add 4 on both sides. But my problem does not look like that. That is when I would add 4 to both sides. What does my problem look like? I would read this as negative 4 what x? What operation is happening? Bomnet? Multiplication. This is negative 4 times x. So what's the inverse to multiplication? Division. So I divide by negative 4. I'm going to divide by the exact number that's right beside the variable, and it cancels out. Remember, whatever I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. And then can I do 1 divided by negative 4?
No.
I just leave it as negative 1/4.
Wait.
So the next problem here, what do I need to do, Matthew? Divide by what kind of 3? Negative 3. Do not forget the signs because I know it's negative 3 times x. So I divide by negative 3. And then can I do 2 divided by negative 3?
No.
No. So what is my answer going to be? Excuse me. Negative 2/3. Now, if that was a fraction that needed to be simplified, we would have to simplify it. But because it can't, that's our final answer. So on this next problem, 2x equals 22. What is happening between the 2 and the x? What operation? Multiplication. So what am I going to do to get x by itself? Divide. So I divide by 2, and I've actually got a problem that's going to work out. What's 22 divided by 2? 11. I don't mean work out, I mean simplify to a whole number. X equals 11. What about this next one? What am I going to do?
Divide by 30 on both sides and get b equals 26.
Okay, so we divide by 30 on both sides. And I find that b is equal to 5/30. But is that appropriate for me to leave my answer like that? No, because it can be simplified. So I ask myself, okay, what number will go into both 5 and 30? 5. So I divide both of these numbers by 5, and I get b is equal to 1/6. Your answer has to be reduced or you will get points taken off. So the next example then, we've got x divided by 5 equals negative 30. So if I want to solve for x, I've got to use the inverse operation. Well, if what is happening is division, what is the inverse of division? Multiplication. What am I going to multiply by? What is x being divided by? 5. So that's what I multiply by. So I'm going to write 5 here. And technically what happens is if I multiplied by 5/1, because it's a fraction, those cancel out. That's why. So then whatever I do to one side, I've got to do to the other. I multiply by 5. And I get x is equal to negative 150. Now, do not forget about your sign. That's a common mistake people make is they just say, oh, x is equal to 150. Well, that's not true. The best part about 3.1 and 3.2 so far is everything that I have done can always be checked. So technically on these questions on your test and on your quiz, you should know exactly what you're going to get before you ever turn in the test. Because you can plug it in and check. In this section, you are allowed to use your calculators. So what I would do if I were you, is I would just take this 150, negative 150, because we know it's x, plug in your calculator. Negative 150 divided by 5. Press enter. If what you get is negative 30, that was our original problem, you know you've done it right. I got the right answer. There's no way I can take off any points because I got the correct answer. Okay? Now on this next one, what am I going to do, Amanda?
Multiply x over 9.
Very good. Multiply by 9, which will cancel out. Multiply by 9. What is negative 25 times 9?
Negative 225.
Negative 225. What am I going to do on this next problem?
Multiply by -4 on both sides.
Very good. I multiply by negative 4. You say, wait a second, there's a fraction over there. That's okay. We can handle it. So we multiply by negative 4, which cancels out. Now watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to multiply by negative 4 over 1. I'm going to go ahead and write it as a fraction so that I don't have to worry about, oh, is the 4 on the top or the bottom? Now, do you see anything that I can simplify before I multiply?
The denominators.
Yes, 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 4 one time. How many negative signs do I have? 2. So it's going to be a positive. So I know my answer is m is equal to what?
3.
Positive 3. So the last example that we're going to talk about is what happens when I've got a fraction that's being multiplied by the variable. Well, I can't divide because I know there's no such thing as division of a fraction. So what do I do instead? We learned this back in chapter 2. Stephanie?
We can multiply it.
Multiply by the reciprocal, or KFC. Keep, flip, change. So I'm going to rewrite this problem, give myself a little bit of room. 10 equals negative 2/3 m. So I know I can multiply by the reciprocal. Well, what's the reciprocal of negative 2/3? Darius?
Negative 3 over 2.
Perfect, negative 3 over 2. Now look what happens. Cancel, cancel. That's the whole point. So then whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. I multiply by negative 3 over 2. I'm going to put my 10 over 1 just so it's easy. Now, is there anything for me to simplify before I multiply? Anybody see anything?
Oh, you can simplify the 10 and the 3.
The 2 and the 10. 2 goes into 10, or what number can go into both 2 and 10?
5. 2.
2. Very good. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So then I can just multiply straight across. M is equal to what?
5.
I multiply negative 3 times 5, which is negative 15. Okay? So let's do the next one. 14 equals negative 7 over 8x. What am I going to do to solve this problem? Darius? Okay, we can put 14 over 1. Matthew, what am I going to do, though, so that I can actually solve it?
You multiply by switching the fraction around.
Exactly. Multiply by the reciprocal, which is?
8 over 7. Negative 8 over 7.
Very good. Negative 8 over 7. Cancels out. Don't forget, whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So I'm going to multiply by negative 8 over 7. Now, you're seriously going to need a calculator here if you try to do negative 8 times 14. But What do you see that I can simplify that's going to make it much easier for us, Clay?
7 and 14.
Okay, 7 and 14. What number goes into both 7 and 14? 7. 7 goes into 7 one time. 7 goes into 14 two times. So then I multiply straight across. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. 1 times 1 is 1. But do I need to write negative 16 over 1? No. Negative 16 equals x. Now, is it okay to leave my answer like that? No, let's flip it around. X equals negative 16. All right, last but not least. What am I going to multiply by?
Positive 1, 6. 6 over 1.
6 over 1. Very good. The reciprocal cancels out. I multiply by 6 over 1 here. What do you see that I can simplify before I even multiply?
6 and 6.
6 goes into 6 one time. 6 goes into 6 one time. And D is equal to 5. Okay. Now I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to work these on your own. Okay, Javen, tell me what you would do on this first problem here.
You'd add the invisible 1.
Okay, so I'm going to write the invisible 1 there because I know it's there. So then what am I going to do to solve for x?
You're going to divide by negative 1 on each side.
Perfect. Divide by negative 1 on both sides. So now I get x is equal to what?
Positive 25.
Positive 25. Perfect. You say, but wait a second. They're both negative. So doesn't that mean the whole fraction's negative? No. A double negative always equals a positive. Very good. All right. The second problem, Bombnet. What did you do on this second problem? Okay. Who can help her out? Who did that one? Stephanie?
Since it's a divided by 9, you have to times it on both sides.
Very good. And what are we timesing on both sides?
9.
Very good. I multiply by 9 on both sides. And what does A equal?
A equals 90.
Very good. Positive 90. Okay, and last but not least, Clay, what would I do here?
You need to multiply negative 3 over 4 times 4 over negative 3.
And what is that called? Reciprocal. Very good. Okay, so we multiply by the reciprocal. That cancels out. And I'm also going to multiply by the reciprocal on this side. I'm going to write this 3 over 1. And what do you see that I can take care of before I ever multiply? Cancel out the 3's. Okay, and then I multiply straight across. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Negative 4 over 1 is the answer.